Hello, hello. Happy Sunday, everyone. File on in, everyone. Uncle Jason's going to be talking about Sumerian magic this fine Sunday. We are going to go through this book, actually. You've probably seen these. These are mass-produced. But this is Epic Babylon and Sumer Myths and Tales. This is the biggest book. It's kind of like, you know, when you do like the Barnes & Noble editions. It's kind of like that. But this is one of the biggest, most epic books about Sumerian mythology I've ever seen. And it has an entire section about Sumerian magic, which is fascinating to me for a lot of reasons. Why is Sumerian magic fascinating? First of all, a lot of the mythology that's in Christianity and Judaism, I hate to break it to you, but it's directly ripped off from Sumerian mythology. For instance, the flood story and Noah and a bunch of other things are just things that were lifted from Sumerian mythology via Mesopotamia and then Babylon. So for that reason, it's possible it's not promoted very much because the very existence of Sumerian mythology completely undermines the story of all the other religions. Other reasons Sumeria is fascinating. Aleister Crowley, even at the end of his life, said that the true goal of Thelema was to resurrect the Sumerian tradition. What did he mean by that? Was he trolling? Was he messing with young Kenneth Grant? We don't know. But it's a fascinating topic, and lo and behold, as I have, when you go back and read anthropological texts, there aren't many. In fact, there's only one by Leonard Woolley. When you go back and you read anthropological writing about Sumeria, you find a lot of magical practices that sound like Thelema or sound like Western magic. For instance, the appeal to a guardian spirit that guides your life, the use of household gods, all this amazing stuff. I got a dog who's eating something mysterious. 1 second. What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? Drop it. All right. Hopefully this goes well. Rishi. Anyways, but to the point where even on the cover of book 4, the Aleister Crowley, the big blue brick one that Bill Breeze edited, you can see the seal of Inanna and Ishtar. Rishi. Rishi, drop it. Drop it. I cannot, for the life of me, catch my dog, and I have no idea what she's chewing on. Hopefully this all goes well. Okay, anyways, so that's all very interesting. Also, the existence of Sumeria itself. People don't realize nobody even knew Sumeria existed. They didn't. There's like one vague reference in the Bible. Yeah, hellhound is loose. Very true. There's one vague reference in the Bible to Sumeria, but it's kind of glossed over. But people didn't Rishi does have the talking stick. That's funny. People didn't know that it existed as a real civilization until it was excavated at the end of the 19th century. So this whole civilization that nobody even knew about just emerged out of the desert one day. I mean, they dug it up, obviously. That is the most wild, insane thing to me. And the crazy thing also is ancient Egypt wasn't that different. They only really started excavating all the pyramids and all the tombs and things like that, I believe, during the Napoleonic period, but really continued on into the 19th century and the Victorian period. And just the whole conception is, our entire conception of the ancient world is totally modern. That in a way, as we're moving into the future, we're also moving into the past in a strange way. Unfolding, humanity is unfolding in both directions. And by the way, I imagine we may continue to find even older civilizations. I mean, God knows what's in the ocean. There may be ruins in under the water that increasing sonar technology will be able to detect. So we really have no idea how far back humanity goes. If you believe the Hindus and the Theosophists, it goes back, potentially many Earth cycles, whole ice ages. So, but of course that's conjecture. But why not? Why wouldn't it be possible that there could have been some civilization underground, or that is in existence right now underground? I've seen news articles, these are not conspiracy articles, but articles about there are remains of other planets inside our planet. Literally, that crashed into the Earth at some point. There's a whole part of another planet inside our planet. Also, that there are underground oceans that comprise more water than the rest of the world's oceans, that most of the world's water is in an underground ocean beneath the world's oceans. I mean, what could live down there? We have no idea. I'm not going to be like, I think that when people talk about the hollow Earth, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's because obviously the Earth is not hollow. That's silly. But why wouldn't it be possible that there might be underground civilizations? People currently live beneath New York. There's a great movie about it called Dark Days. All these people live underground in the subway tunnels and beneath the subway tunnels beneath New York and have their own kind of mole people civilization. Just insane stuff. And humans can find a way to do almost anything. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to hype everyone up. There's a Mayan city off the west coast of Cuba, pyramids and all. Whoa. Agartha, very spooky. So it just wild, right? And now people are talking about Göbekli Tepe and all these things, which are even older than Sumeria, but we don't know that much about them. But with Sumeria, what we get is something that really looks like that looks like civilization, meaning write an alphabet, cuneiform, identifiable gods, masonry and stonework, the wheel, probably arithmetic and all of that, and a fairly sophisticated, well, I don't want to say necessarily sophisticated, but a pretty complex conception or a magical conception of the universe, which is totally alien yet weirdly familiar. So that is what we're going to be talking about. In the meantime, we have a new super chat goal. For all super chats, let's see. All right. All right. New super chat goal. For all super chats of $10 or more, you get a 1-card tarot reading. from this large pack official Aleister Crowley Thoth Tarot deck. This is the huge, the giant version that I think was printed in the 70s. They're super cool. Yep. The Aleister Crowley, Lady Frida Harris tarot cards, one of the greatest, the greatest tarot deck ever made, by far, and one that still looks hyper modern and futuristic even now, nearly 100 years later. It's a little Art Deco, but in a very futuristic way. These are will be immortal cards designed to last the next 2,000 years. So, you get a tarot card reading from the wizard for $10 or more, and it helps support the channel. It helps get dog food for young Charles and Rishi, and it helps keep the school going. All right. So, where were we? Yes. Epic Tales of Babylon and Sumer. Oh, and I don't have I ran out of time to put together Evil Brotherhood tracker for this week, but there's been a ton, and I'm talking about terrorist incidents, religious extremist terrorist incidents in Africa and India, and particularly wanted to commemorate or call attention to, there was a huge massacre of Hindus in India by members of the Islamic faith from Pakistan. So, and it's a huge, Narendra Modi has vowed vengeance on the terrorists, and hopefully that gets taken care of. So that is definitely happening. That's a major thing. And there was just what appeared to be a truck of peace attack in Vancouver today, but there's not enough details on that to say what's going on, hopefully, but it's very tragic. All right. So we're going to go through the magic, demonology, and superstition section of this book. Dirtworm. Very good. We got our first one. We will do your reading in a second. So we're going to go through the magic, demonology, and superstition section of this book together for the first time. I have not read this because I just got this book, but it is full of writing about the structure of Sumerian magic, including a bunch of actual magic spells, which will be read aloud online to an audience of thousands, which could open a portal, much like in the first Ghostbusters film, where Dana will become Zool. There will be no more Dana. There will only be Zool. It's quite possible that could happen during this fateful reading of Sumerian lore and spells. So we're going to talk about their mythological creatures, all kinds of crazy stuff, and we'll see how far they have. Babylonian vampires in here. Wild. Antediluvians. All right, so, but we're going to see how far we get with this. All right, Rishi wants out. 1 second. 1 second. Go. All right. So, here we are. Oh, first of all, let's do Dirtworm's tarot reading. When you put in your super chat, if you have a specific question, you can ask. I'm like that fairground, I'm like, if you go to a creepy fairground and there's one of those fortune telling machines just sitting there that's like, give me a quarter, I love quarters. That's basically me. I'm the 21st century live version of that. But it's a great show, you have to admit. So you can put your question if you want. Dirtworm, your card is the Princess of Cups, Earth of Water. Interesting. And then Richard with the Open the Portal. Peace. Two of Swords drawn. Bones 55 says, what do I get for a $100 super chat? A full tarot reading. How about that? All right. And Anne Henry, here's yours. The Lovers. Ah, what a nice card. There you have it. All right. Chad says, I live in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and right next to the Zoltar machine. Yes, that's what the Zoltar machine. They have a new Trump one at the Wax Museum. That's funny. All right. Donald A. Mackenzie describes the very tangible, literal nature of both good and bad Babylonian spirits, pointing out that in contrast to what Paul preached to the Athenians, that God dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone graven by art and man's device. Temples were houses of the gods in the literal sense. The gods were supposed to dwell in them, their spirits having entered into the graven images or blocks of stone. It's probable that, like the ancient Egyptians, they believed that God had as many spirits as he had attributes. The gods, as we have said, appear to have evolved from early spirit groups. And I want to say, as an aside, one of the fascinating things about Sumerian and Babylonian, Mesopotamian religion, essentially, is in Judaism and thereon, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, if you really look, they don't have a conception of Jehovah. He's without form. It's perhaps a more advanced understanding of the nature of existence to have a God without form, because to have a form for a God, of course, implies a limitation on that God in a certain way of thinking. Therefore, it cannot be a true depiction and would only be an illusion. Okay, well, that makes sense logically. But as an occultist and looking at the actual history of it, the history of religion, looking back, these gods called like Yahweh and things like that, they had forms. They were like, had these crazy winged beard, like lamasus and angels with a billion eyes and all this stuff, and multiple heads and all this crazy stuff that is clearly the God and the gods that are being talked about in the Old Testament under different forms, but they have these totally tripped out, bizarre, kind of Persian, Assyrian looking wild forms, right? So interesting stuff. All right. All the world. Okay, so the gods, as we have said, appear to have evolved from early spirit groups. All the world swarmed with spirits which inhabited stones and trees, mountains and deserts, rivers and ocean, the air, the sky, the stars, and the sun and moon. The spirits controlled nature. They brought light and darkness, sunshine and storm, summer and winter. They were manifested in the thunderstorm, the sandstorm, the glare of sunset, and the wraiths of mist rising from the steaming marshes. They controlled also the lives of men and women. The good spirits were the source of luck. The bad spirits caused misfortunes and were ever seeking to work evil against the Babylonian. Darkness was peopled by demons and ghosts of the dead. The spirits of disease were ever lying in wait to clutch him with cruel, invisible hands. The first part of this chapter derives from Mackenzie, while from priestly magicians, Witches and Wizards is Lewis Spence's discussion of this fascinating area of Babylonian belief. So it seems like, it seems like they're mostly focusing on the Babylonians here. Let me double check that. Okay. So actually, it was false advertising in this video. It's actually Babylonian magic. That's terrible for YouTube. Oh no, I'm not delivering what I said I was going to. I feel very bad. However, you can see how I would think that from it says Sumeria. But however, here's the thing. My sense of things is that Babylon and Sumeria is a little bit like Rome and Greece, meaning specifically the Assyrians, not the Assyrians, excuse me, the Akkadians. The Akkadians conquered Sumeria and took their mythology, right? It was part of the spoils of battle. And then the Babylonians conquered the Akkadians and took the mythology from the Akkadians as the spoils of battle. And so in many ways, and the Babylonian, we know for sure the Babylonian mythology and stuff checks out as basically the same as the Akkadian stuff. It just became more and more refined over time. So, and then from Babylon, we have the Babylonian captivity, and then there's Egypt and all this stuff. And then we get more onto some of the main events of the Bible, such as Exodus. All right, so basically, which is a long way of saying, I think we can infer a lot. We can infer quite a lot about Sumerian mythology and magic from studying the Babylonian. All right. Darkness was peopled by demons and ghosts of the dead. The spirits of disease were ever lying in wait to clutch him with cruel, invisible hands. Okay, yes, so this is... All right, from Mackenzie. All right, demons, fairies, and ghosts. Germ theory anticipated. Some modern writers, who are too prone to regard ancient peoples from a 20th century point of view, express grave doubts as to whether intelligent Babylonians really believed that spirits came down in the rain and entered the soil to rise up before men's eyes as stalks of barley or wheat. There's no reason for supposing that they thought otherwise. The early folks based their theories on the accumulated knowledge of their age. They knew nothing regarding the composition of water or the atmosphere, of the cause of thunder and lightning, or of the chemical changes affected in soils by the action of bacteria. They attributed all natural phenomena to the operation of spirits or gods. In believing that certain demons caused certain diseases, they may be said to have achieved distinct progress, for they anticipated the germ theory. That's interesting because I believe if you remember, it was either in the last stream or the one before, we were reading Austin Spare, and he was talking about spirits basically being a way to talk about germ theory. That he was saying that when people talk about spirits and things like that, they're observing something, perhaps bacterial in nature, and that is or certainly at the cellular level, right? Like that is fascinating. When you think about, for instance, the idea of when people are doing magical rituals and they feel they're talking to the gods, or for instance, let's say this, people do the archetypal Joe Rogan DMT trip, and they're seeing this whole jeweled DMT universe. How do you know they're not just seeing their cells? They're not seeing inward. How do you know those aren't just like what it looks like in the membrane of a cell or from it? I've had that thought before. So, all very interesting. Interesting. So, in believing that certain demons caused certain diseases, they may be said to have achieved distinct progress, for they anticipated the germ theory. They made discoveries too, which have been approved and elaborated in later times when they lit sacred fires, bathed in sacred waters, and used oils and herbs to charm away spirits of pestilence. Indeed, many folk cures which were originally associated with magical ceremonies are still practiced in our own day. They were found to be effective by early observers, although they were unable to explain why and how cures were accomplished, like modern scientific investigators. In peopling the universe with spirits, the Babylonians, like other ancient folks, betrayed that tendency to symbolize everything which has ever appealed to the human mind. Our painters and poets and sculptors are greatest when they symbolize their ideals and ideas and impressions, and by so doing make us respond to their moods. Their beauty and their terror are sublime, but what may seem poetic to us was invariably a grim reality to the Babylonians. The statue or picture was not merely a work of art, but a manifestation of the god or demon. So that, I think, is critical, and that is a big misunderstanding. Thank you, Brett. All right, we'll get to that. That's a big misunderstanding that perhaps inevitably modern Western people have when it comes to understanding some other religions. So perhaps because of the built-in thing about idol worship in the Abrahamic faiths. Okay, so key example on this point is Hinduism. There's there's lots of Hinduisms, but for sake of argument, there's two Hinduisms. There's Hinduism as white Western people see it and is practiced in Santa Monica, okay, which is great. I was part of that scene for a long time. But then there's Hinduism as it's actually practiced in India by Indian people, and which is also the same Hinduism, quite by and large, that is practiced by Indian people in America, right? And there's a big gulf between those. And one of them is that the Hinduism as it's seen by Western people tends to be through the guru experience. So that you go see a guru and he teaches you about infinite love and bliss and some yoga techniques to get to, and there may be talk of gods and things like that, but it's in a perhaps philosophical way, or perhaps the guru convinces you they are God, and people are dancing and singing, and this is something like going to Amma or something like that, or Sadhguru, or but they're there and they may be teaching very important things, right? But that's how Westerners tend to interact with Hinduism, whereas in India and with Indian people here, they go to temples where there are statues and do statue pujas, right? So they're literally worshiping statues, going and praying at them and putting flowers and offerings of rice and things like that, and money, right? And they pray to statues, and that's Hinduism as that is practiced. And you can see there's a giant gulf between those two things. And one of them is that, what I think that, even if they're modern supposed hippie, progressive hippies, I think that there is an inherent bias with Western people because we come from Abrahamic background where it's like, oh, that's idol worship. You're praying to a statue. God is so much bigger than that. My God is so much bigger than that, right? But you don't understand the logic. Once you understand the logic, it makes a lot more sense. In a polytheistic way of thinking, everything is God, right? And God takes on the faces of everything. So why wouldn't God take on the face of gods? And why can't those gods all be equal? Because in Hinduism, in Hindu theology, metaphysics, which I put a lot of stock into as kind of an underlying model of reality, Sanatan Dharma, as like a good fallback position at all times. It's the idea of Atman equals Brahman, meaning everything's God, everything is God, and God is everything, just in different embodied forms. So, and Western people don't get that at all. It's a completely alien metaphysic to Western people. It's a beautiful one, though. And a very magical, it leads to a very magical state of consciousness following it. It's quite wonderful. But it's very alien. It's almost as alien in my experience, and I spent a lot of time exploring it. It's similar to entering like in a Native American context, the other type of Indian, ironically, right? Like how alien that would be for the standard, in a real way, not in a Coachella festival way, but in a real way. Like actually adopting it, how alien that would be for Western, European people. So, anyways. So, long way to TLDR, that was a huge ramble, but long way of saying, I think that when they're talking about the statue worship in Sumeria, it is quite likely that it's in a similar way as I'm talking about with India or Kathmandu. I spent a lot of time in Kathmandu, where everything's a statue and people are worshiping gods everywhere. And I imagine it was quite similar. So, all right. That was my commentary on the statue or picture was not merely a work of art, but a manifestation of the god or demon. As had been said, they believed that the spirit of the god inhabited the idol. The frown of the brazen image was the frown of the wicked demon. They entertained as much dread of the winged and human-headed bulls guarding the entrance to the royal palace as do some of the Arab workmen who, in our own day, assist excavators to rescue them from sandy mounds in which they have been hidden for long centuries. When an idol was carried away from a city by an invading army, it was believed that the god himself had been taken prisoner and was therefore unable to any longer help his people. Early gods indistinguishable from demons. In the early stages of Sumerian culture, the gods and goddesses who formed groups were indistinguishable from demons. Okay. I can feel the portal to... I feel Dana becoming Zool. I can feel the portal to Gozer, the Sumerian, opening. This is actually quite frightening. This is specifically about Sumeria. In the early stages of Sumerian culture, the gods and goddesses who formed groups were indistinguishable from demons. This is the earliest civilization on record. They were vaguely defined and had changing shapes. When attempts were made to depict them, they were represented in many varying forms. Some were winged bulls or lions with human heads. Others had even more remarkable composite forms. The dragon of Babylon, for instance, which was portrayed on walls of temples, had a serpent's head, a body covered with scales, the forelegs of a lion, hind legs of an eagle, and a long, wriggling serpentine tail. Ea had several monster forms. The following description of one of these is repulsive enough. Okay, get ready. The portal's about to open. This is spooky. I'm already spooked out. I'm a pushover in that regard, but it's getting heavy already. The head is the head of a serpent. From his nostrils, mucus trickles. His mouth is beslavered with water. The ears are like those of a basilisk. His horns are twisted into 3 curls. He wears a veil in his headband. The body is a subfish full of stars. The base of his feet are claws. The sole of his foot has no heel. His name is Sasuwunu, a sea monster, a form of Ea. This is R.C. Thompson's translation. All the birds just stopped singing. Okay, not really, but that's kind of how that felt. All right. Even after the gods were given beneficent attributes to reflect the growth of culture and were humanized, they still retained many of their savage characteristics. Bel-Enlil and his fierce son, Nergal, were destroyers of mankind. The storm god desolated the land. The sky god deluged it with rain. The sea raged furiously, ever hungering for human victims. The burning sun struck down its victims, and the floods played havoc with the dikes and houses of human beings. In Egypt, the sun god Ra was similarly a producer of calamity. The composite monster god, Sokar, was the lord of fear. Osiris in prehistoric times had been a dangerous god, and some of the pharaohs sought protection against him in the charms inscribed in their tombs. The Indian Shiva, the destroyer, in the old religious poems, has also primitive attributes of like character. Damn. The Sumerian gods never lost their connection with the early spirit groups. These continued to be represented by their attendants, who executed a deity's stern and vengeful decrees. In one of the Babylonian charms, the demons are referred to as the spleen of the gods, the symbols of their wrathful emotions and vengeful desires. Bel Enlil, the air and earth god, was served by the demons of disease, the beloved sons of Bel, which issued from the underworld to attack mankind. Nergal, the sulky and ill-tempered lord of death and destruction, who never lost his demoniac character, swept over the land, followed by the spirits of pestilence, sunstroke, weariness, and destruction. Anu, the sky god, had spawned at creation the demons of cold and rain and darkness. Even Ea and his consort, Damkina, were served by groups of devils and giants, which preyed upon mankind in bleak and desolate places when night fell. In the ocean home of Ea were bred the 7 evil spirits of tempest, the gaping dragon, the leopard which preyed upon children, the great beast, the terrible serpent, etc. Man, and God knows what that etc. was. Oh, geez. Okay, we got to stop and do tarot readings because I got to process that. All right, thoughts, comments, what's going on? The original gods of humanity were demons. They're like called things like the leopard that preyed upon children. Are we in H.P. Lovecraft territory? Where are we? This is terrifying. Terrifying stuff. Whew. All right. Let me shuffle these cards. I wish I had like a CGI thing so I could just suddenly turn into Gozer from Ghostbusters, just like with the push of a button. Just to F with everyone. All right. Brent, your tarot card is the Hierophant. A very fortunate, a very positive reading. All right, and Julia, your tarot card is Oppression. The 10 of Wands. Too much fire, too much will, too many. You're being oppressed by trying to go too many directions at once, quite likely. Think upon it. That is your card. I hope that these were helpful for everyone. Okay. Let me make sure I got it. Did I get everyone? I think I got everyone. All right. 1 second. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we will continue our descent to the tentacle depths of history. All right. Are things popping off in the comments already? What the hell? Man, what? Oh, somebody's complaining about the translation? Okay, I don't know what's going on. All right. They're just afraid of what comes next. They're resisting it, but there will be no resistance. Egyptian, Indian, Greek, and Germanic parallels. In Indian mythology, Indra was similarly followed by the stormy Maruts, the fierce Rudra by the tempestuous Rudras. In Teutonic mythology, Odin is the wild huntsman in the raging host. In Greek mythology, the ocean furies attend upon fickle Poseidon. Other examples of this kind could be multiplied. As we have seen, the earliest group of Babylonian deities consisted probably of 4 pairs of gods and goddesses, as in Egypt. The first pair was Apsu, Rishtu, and Tiamat, who personified the primordial deep. Now the elder deities in most mythologies, the grandsires and grandmothers and fathers and mothers, are ever the most powerful and most vengeful. They appear to represent primitive layers of savage thought. The Greek Kronos devours even his own children, and, as the late Andrew Lang has shown, there are many parallels to this myth among primitive peoples in various parts of the world. Lang regarded the Greek survival as an example of the conservatism of the religious instinct. The grandmother of the Teutonic deity Tyr was a fierce giantess with 900 heads. His father was an enemy of the gods. In Scotland, the hag mother of winter and storm and darkness is the enemy of growth and all life, and she raises storms to stop the grass growing, to slay young animals, and prevent the union of her son with his fair bride. Similarly, the Babylonian chaos spirits, Apsu and Tiamat, the father and mother of the gods, resolve to destroy their offspring, because they begin to set the universe in order. Tiamat, the female dragon, is more powerful than her husband Apsu, who is slain by his son Ea. She summons to her aid the gods of evil, and creates also a brood of monsters, serpents, dragons, vipers, fishmen, raging hounds, etc., so as to bring about universal and enduring confusion and evil. Not until she is destroyed can the beneficent gods establish law and order and make the earth habitable and beautiful. But although Tiamat was slain, the everlasting battle between the forces of good and evil was ever waged in the Babylonian world. Certain evil spirits were let loose at certain periods, and they strove to accomplish the destruction of mankind and his works. These invisible enemies were either charmed away by performing magical ceremonies or by invoking the gods to thwart them and bind them. Whew. Okay. Let's take a break for thank you, Chaos Moon. All right, take a break for another tarot reading. Let's see. No. What is it? It is the Priestess. What an excellent reading. Very good. Thank you for the super chat. All right. We got a riot in the comments. My God. You behave, people, or we're going to have to ban you. You're complaining about the translations? My brother in Dagon, you're on a YouTube live chat with a bunch of people who think magic spells are real. Like, come on. Lighten the F up. This is a Barnes and Noble book. Like, chill the fuck out, man. All right. Smoke a joint. All right. Animal demons. Other spirits inhabited the bodies of animals and were ever hovering near. The ghosts of the dead and male and female demons were birds, like the birds of fate, which sang to Siegfried. When the owl raised its melancholy voice in the darkness, the listener heard the spirit of a departed mother crying for her child. Ghosts and evil spirits wandered through the streets in darkness. They haunted empty houses. They fluttered through the evening air as bats. They hastened, moaning dismally, across barren wastes, searching for food or lay in wait for travelers. They came as roaring lions and howling jackals, hungering for human flesh. The Shadu was a destructive bull, which might slay man wantonly or as a protector of temples. Of like character was the Lamassu, depicted as a winged bull with human head, the protector of palaces. The Alu was a bull-like demon of tempest, and there were also many composite, distorted, or formless monsters which were vaguely termed Caesars, as in Seizers, as in seizing, or overthrowers. The Semitic Labashu and Akkazu, the Sumerian Demia and Demikur, a dialectic form of Galu, or devil, was Mullah. Professor Pinches thinks it not improbable that Mullah may be connected with the word Mula, meaning star, and suggests that it referred to a will-o'-the-wisp. In these islands, according to an old rhyme, some call him Robin Goodfellow, Hobgoblin, or Mad Crisp, and some again do term him oft by name of Will-the-Wisp. Other names are Kitty, Peg, and Jack with a Lantern. Poor Robin sang, I should indeed as soon expect that Peg-a-Lantern would direct me straightway home on misty night, as wandering stars quite out of sight. In Shakespeare's Tempest, a sailor exclaims, Your fairy, which you say is a harmless fairy, has done little better than played the Jack with us. Dr. Johnson commented that the reference was to Jack with a Lantern. Milton wrote also of the wandering fire, which oft they say some evil spirit attends, hovering and blazing with delusive light, misleads the amazed night wanderer from his way to bogs and mires, and oft through pond or pool there swallowed up and lost from succor far. When we stick in the mire, sang Drayton, he doth with laughter leave us. These fires were also fallen stars, death fires, and fire drakes. So have I seen a fire drake glide along before a dying man to point his grave, and in it stick and hide. Oy, oy, oy. All right, continuing into the abyss. Don't forget, you might want to get your $10 super chat in requests in before the gates to Cthulhu's butthole open up, and we are all doomed. And Gozer and Zool come out. All right. Be right back, changing name to Frauder Mad Crisp. Hell yeah. That sounds very occult. It's kind of like one of those ones like the Mothman is supposed to be named Indrid Cold. There's something about that name Indrid Cold that was apparently told to essentially one of the abductees. That just freaks me out. Kristen Lewis, all right, there we go. Super chat, thank you very much. Your tarot card is Abundance. How lucky for you. Many grapes are coming your way. Is it metaphorical, or will you simply be delivered lots of grapes mysteriously one day? Only time will tell. Very good. Thank you very much for the super chat. All right. Adam's first wife, Lilith. Oh boy, here we go. Let's get to the bottom of this at last. Pliny referred to the wandering lights as stars. The Sumerian mullah was undoubtedly an evil spirit. In some countries, the fire drake is a bird with gleaming breast. In Babylonia, it assumed the form of a bull, and may have had some connection with the bull of Ishtar. Like the Indian Dasyu and Dasa, Galu was applied in the sense of foreign devil to human and superhuman adversaries of certain monarchs. Some of the supernatural beings resemble our elves and fairies, and the Indian Rakshasas. Rakshasas are very, very nasty demons. They all look like Wario. Occasionally, they appear in comely human guise. At other times, they are vaguely monstrous. The best known of this class is Lilith, who, according to Hebrew tradition, preserved in the Talmud, was the demon lover of Adam. She has been immortalized by Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Of Adam's first wife, Lilith, it is told, the which he loved before the gift of Eve, that ere the snakes her sweet tongue could deceive, and her enchanted hair was the first gold, and still she sits, young while the earth is old, and suddenly of herself, contemplative, draws men to watch the bright web she can weave, till heart and body and life are in its hold. The rose and poppy are her flowers, for where is he not found, O Lilith, whom shed scent and soft shed kisses and soft sleep shall snare? Lo, as that youth's eyes burned at thine, so went thy spell through him, and left his straight neck bent, and round his heart one strangling golden hair. Lilith is the Babylonian Lilithu, a feminine form of Lilu, the Sumerian Lila. She resembles Surpanaka of the Ramayana, who made love to Rama and Lakshmana, and the sister of the demon Hidimva, who became enamored of Bhima, one of the heroes of the Mahabharata, and the various fairy lovers of Europe who lured men to eternal imprisonment inside mountains, or vanished forever when they were completely under their influence, leaving them demented. The elfin Lilu similarly wooed young women, like the Germanic Lauren of the wonderful Rose Garden, who carried away the fair lady Kunhild to his underground dwelling amidst the Tyrolese mountains, or left them haunting the place of their meetings, searching for him in vain. A savage place, as holy and enchanted as ere beneath the waning moon was haunted by a woman wailing for her demon lover. His flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, for he on honey dew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise. Coleridge's Kubla Khan. Another materializing spirit of this class was Ardat Lili, who appears to have wedded human beings like the swan maidens, the mermaids, and nereids of the European folk tales, and the goddess Ganga, who for a time was the wife of King Shantanu of the Mahabharata. The Labartu, to whom we have referred, was a female who haunted mountains and marshes. Like the fairies and hags of Europe, she stole or afflicted children, who accordingly had to wear charms round their necks for protection. 7 of these supernatural beings were reputed to be the daughters of Anu, the sky god. The demon of nightmare. The Alu, a storm deity, was also a spirit which caused nightmares. It endeavored to smother sleepers like the Scandinavian hag Mara, and similarly deprived them of power to move. In Babylonia, this evil spirit might also cause sleeplessness or death by hovering near a bed. In shape, it might be as horrible and repulsive as the Egyptian ghosts, which cause children to die from fright or by sucking out the breath of life. Ghosts as enemies of the living. As most representatives of the spirit world were enemies of the living, so were the ghosts of dead men and women. Death chilled all human affections. It turned love to hate. The deeper the love had been, the deeper became the enmity fostered by the ghost. Certain ghosts might also be regarded as particularly virulent and hostile if they happened to have left the body of one who was ceremonially impure. The vengeful dead mother. Woo! And now for a word from our sponsor, Bang Energy Drink. No, actually, it's magic.me, my school for magic, meditation, and mysticism, magick.me, where you too can learn to summon Sumerian gods. No joke. It's an incredibly entertaining party trick. The vengeful dead mother. Can you hear the ghosts rattling in the airwaves? Sumerian ghost gods. The most terrible ghost in Babylonia was that of a woman who had died in childbed. She was pitied and dreaded. Her grief had demented her. She was doomed to wail in the darkness. Her impurity clung to her like poison. No spirit was more prone to work evil against mankind, and her hostility was accompanied by the most tragic sorrow. In northern India, the Hindus, like the ancient Babylonians, regard as a fearsome demon the ghost of a woman who died while pregnant or on the day of the child's birth. A similar belief prevailed in Mexico. In Europe, there are many folk tales of dead mothers who return to avenge themselves on the cruel fathers of neglected children. A sharp contrast is presented by the Mongolian Buryats, whose outlook on the spirit world is less gloomy than was that of the ancient Babylonians. According to Mr. Jeremiah Curtin, this interesting people are wont to perform a ceremony with purpose to entice the ghost to return to the dead body, a proceeding which is dreaded in the Scottish Highlands. The Buryats address the ghost, saying, "You shall sleep well. Come back to your natural ashes. Take pity on your friends. It is necessary to live a real life. Do not wander along the mountains. Do not be like bad spirits. Return to your peaceful home. Come back and work for your children. How can you leave the little ones?" If it is a mother, these words have great effect. Sometimes the spirit moans and sobs, and the Buryats tell that there have been instances of it returning to the body. In his Arabia Deserta, Dodi relates that Arab women and children mock the cries of the owl. One explained to him, "It is a wailful woman seeking her lost child. She has become this forlorn bird." So do immemorial beliefs survive to our own day. Woo! Okay, we got more tarot readings. Awesome. Let's get your readings in. The tentacles are multiplying. Na 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 na. I wonder if seeing one card at the bottom probabilistically influences the fact that everyone saw two of those cards while I was shuffling. By quantum egregore effect, I wonder if it affects the probability of what card we're going to draw. Because you all have a certain sense of where those cards are unconsciously. Things that make you go, All right, so we got Kristen Lewis. Did we do Kristen's? I think we did. Okay. Paningaz. What will the next worldwide conspiracy theory be? Okay. That's your question for the tarot. Let's find out. Knight of Wands. That a man on a horse with a wand and there's fire is secretly controlling everything. Is it Putin? Maybe it's Putin. Who's a guy on a horse? Who could it represent? Who's this mysterious individual? We don't know, but you shall know him by the fact that he rides on a horse with a wand with like fire special effects in the background. All right. And Alex, all right. Your card is Ace of Cups. May you be blessed by divine flow and inspiration in your artistic process. Be a conduit. Thank you, everyone, for the lovely super chats. Well, we reached our 10 out of 10 goal, but we don't want to deprive everyone else of the fun. So I will restart it with a new one. So now, if you would like a one-card tarot reading, feel free to super chat $10 or more. And I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And it really, really does help the channel. And it's just nice to know, it's just a nice gesture. And it buys Charlie and Rishi food and all that. And it's appreciated. So there you have it. All right. On to our next thrilling topic, fate of childless ghosts. Yep. The Babylonian ghosts of unmarried men and women, and of those without offspring, were also disconsolate night wanderers. Others who suffered similar fates were the ghosts of men who died in battle far from home and were left unburied, the ghosts of travelers who perished in the desert and were not covered over, the ghosts of drowned men which rose from the water, the ghosts of prisoners starved to death or executed, the ghosts of people who died violent deaths before their appointed time, the dead required to be cared for, to have libations poured out, to be fed, so that they might not prowl through the streets or enter houses searching for scraps of food and pure water. The duty of giving offerings to the dead was imposed apparently on near relatives. As in India, it would appear that the eldest son performed the funeral ceremony. A dreadful fate therefore awaited the spirit of the dead Babylonian man or woman without offspring. In Sanskrit literature, there is a reference to a priest who was not allowed to enter paradise, although he had performed rigid penances, because he had no children. Hags and giants as composite monsters. There were hags and giants of mountain and desert, of river and ocean. Demons might possess the pig, the goat, the horse, the lion, or the ibis, the raven, or the hawk. The seven spirits of tempest, fire, and destruction rose from the depths of ocean, and there were hosts of demons which could not be overcome or baffled by man without the assistance of the gods to whom they were hostile. Many were sexless, having no offspring. They were devoid of mercy and compassion. They penetrated everywhere. The high enclosures, the broad enclosures, like a flood they pass through. From house to house they dash along. No door can shut them out. No bolt can turn them back. Through the door like a snake they glide. Through the hinge like the wind they storm, tearing the wife from the embrace of the man, driving the freedman from his family home. These furies did not confine their unwelcome attentions to mankind alone. They hunt the doves from their cotes, and drive the birds from their nests, and chase the marten from its hole. Through the gloomy street by night they roam, smiting sheepfold and cattle pen, shutting up the land as with door and bolt. R.C. Thompson's translation. The Babylonian poet, like Burns, was filled with pity for the animals which suffered in the storm. Listening the doors in Winnock's rattle, I thought me the hoary cattle, or silly sheep will bide this brattle, O winter war, ilk happing bird, wee helpless thing, that in the merry months of spring delighted me to hear thee sing. What comes of thee? Where wilt thou cower thy chittering wing, and close thy eye? Tempest fiends. According to Babylonian belief, the great storms directed from heaven were caused by demons. Mankind heard them loudly roaring above, gibbering below. The south wind was raised by Shutu, a plumed storm demon resembling Hreysvölgur of the Icelandic Eddas. Corpse swallower sits at the end of heaven, a Jotun in eagle form. From his wings, they say, comes the wind which fares over all the dwellers of earth. Oh, me, oh my. All right, now we have a bunch of stuff that is about other cultures. All right. Zoo-bird legend and Indian Garuda myth. Another Sumerian storm demon was the zoo-bird, which is represented among the stars by Pegasus and Taurus. A legend relates that this worker of evil, who raised the head of evil, once aspired to rule the gods, and stole from Bel, the lord of deities, the tablets of destiny, which gave him his power over the universe as controller of the fates of all. The zoo bird escaped with the tablets and found shelter on its mountaintop in Arabia. Anu called on Raman, the thunderer, to attack the zoo bird, but he was afraid. Other gods appear to have shrunk from the conflict. How the rebel was overcome is not certain, because the legend survives in fragmentary form. There is a reference, however, to the moon god setting out towards the mountain in Arabia with purpose to outwit the zoo bird and recover the lost tablets. How he fared it is impossible to ascertain. In another legend, that of Etana, the mother serpent, addressing the sun god, Shamash, says, and for those of you who know your Kabbalah, you know that Shamash becomes basically the same thing in Hebrew for the word for the sun. And is the sun god here as well. Is also the intelligence of the sun in Golden Dawn. Shemesh, I think, at that point. Although it would be the same in Hebrew transliteration. Thy net is like unto the broad earth. Thy snare is like unto the distant heaven. Who hath ever escaped from thy net? Even Zu, the worker of evil, who raised the head of evil, did not escape. It would appear that the Babylonian zoo bird symbolized the summer sandstorms from the Arabian desert. Thunder is associated with the rainy season, and it may have been assumed, therefore, that the thunder god was powerless against the sandstorm demon, who was chased, however, by the moon, and finally overcome by the triumphant sun when it broke through the darkening sand drift and brightened heaven and earth, netting the rebellious demon who desired to establish the rule of evil over gods and mankind. Ay, 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 ay. Let's see if we can... Okay, here we go. I'm going to skip to the juicy bits. Demons and the moon god. The close association of gods and demons is illustrated in an obscure myth which may refer to an eclipse of the moon or a night storm at the beginning of the rainy season. The demons go to war against the high gods and are assisted by Adad, Raman, the thunderer, Shamash, the sun, and Ishtar. They desire to wreck the heavens, the home of Anu. They clustered angrily round the crescent of the moon god, and won over to their aid Shamash, the mighty, and Adad, the warrior, and Ishtar, who with Anu, the king, hath founded a shining dwelling. The moon god's sin, the seed of mankind, was darkened by the demons who raged. So there you have it. The word sin comes from the Babylonian moon god. What does it mean? Is it the association of the moon with darkness and evil, then becomes the phrase sin? That which is done at night? I don't know. Very interesting. The moon god's sin, the seed of mankind, was darkened by the demons who raged, rushing loose over the land, like to the wind. Bel called upon his messenger, whom he sent to Ea in the ocean depths, saying, My son, sin hath been grievously bedimmed. Ea lamented, and dispatched his son Merodach to net the demons by magic, using a two-colored cord from the hair of a virgin kid and from the wool of a virgin lamb. Plague deities. As in India, where Shitala, the Bengali goddess goddess of smallpox, for instance, is worshipped when the dreaded disease she controls becomes epidemic. So in Babylonia, the people sought to secure immunity from attack by worshipping spirits of disease. Lord, fuck, what have we done here? What are we opening? I'm gonna log on to YouTube tomorrow, and the whole thing's just gonna be like scrambled with like tentacles in the blur. All right. A tablet relates that Ura, a plague demon, once resolved to destroy all life, but ultimately consented to spare those who praised his name and exalted him in recognition of his bravery and power. This could be accomplished by reciting a formula. Indian serpent worshippers believe that their devotions destroy all danger proceeding from snakes. Classification of spirits. Like the ancient Egyptians, the Babylonians also had their kindly spirits who brought luck and the various enjoyments of life. A good Labartu might attend on a human being like a household fairy of India or Europe. A friendly Shedu could protect a household against the attacks of fierce demons and human enemies. Even the spirits of fate who served Anu, god of the sky, and that Nam of the underworld, Ereshkigal, queen of Hades, might sometimes be propitious. If the deities were successfully invoked, they could cause the fates to smite spirits of disease and bringers of ill luck. Damu, a friendly fairy goddess, was well loved because she inspired pleasant dreams, relieved the sufferings of the afflicted, and restored to good health those patients whom she selected to favor. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the kindly spirits are overshadowed by the evil ones, because the various magical spells which were put on record were directed against those supernatural beings who were enemies of mankind. Similarly, in Babylonia, the fragments of this class of literature which survive deal mainly with wicked and vengeful demons. It appears probable, however, that the highly emotional Sumerians and Akkadians were on occasion quite as cheerful a people as the inhabitants of ancient Egypt. Although they were surrounded by bloodthirsty furies who desired to shorten their days, and their nights were filled with vague, lowering phantoms which inspired fear, they no doubt shared in their charm-protected houses a comfortable feeling of security after performing magical ceremonies, and were happy enough when they gathered round flickering lights to listen to ancient song and story and gossip about crops and traders, the members of the royal house, and the family affairs of their acquaintances. The Babylonian spirit world, it will be seen, was of complex character. Its inhabitants were numberless, but often vaguely defined, and one class of demons linked with another. Like the European fairies of folk belief, the Babylonian spirits were extremely hostile and irresistible at certain seasonal periods, and they were fickle and perverse, and difficult to please, even when inclined to be friendly. They were also similarly manifested from time to time in various forms. Sometimes they were comely and beautiful. At other times, they were apparitions of horror. The jinn of present-day Arabians are of like character. These may be giants, cloudy shapes, comely women, serpents or cats, goats or pigs. Traces of progress from animism to monotheism. Some of the composite monsters of Babylonia may suggest the vague and exaggerated recollections of terror-stricken people who have had glimpses of unfamiliar wild beasts in the dusk or amidst reedy marshes, but they cannot be wholly accounted for in this way. While animals were often identified with supernatural beings and foreigners were called devils, It would be misleading to assert that the spirit world reflects confused folk memories of human and bestial enemies. Even when a demon was given concrete human form, it remained essentially non-human. No ordinary weapon could inflict an injury, and it was never controlled by natural laws. The spirits of disease and tempest and darkness were creations of fancy. They symbolized moods. They were the causes which explained effects. A sculptor or storyteller who desired to convey an impression of a spirit or storm or pestilence created monstrous forms to inspire terror. Sudden and unexpected visits of fierce and devastating demons were accounted for by asserting that they had wings like eagles, were nimble-footed as gazelles, cunning and watchful as serpents, that they had claws to clutch, horns to gore, and powerful forelegs like a lion to smite down victims. Withal they drank blood like ravens and devoured corpses like hyenas. Monsters were all the more repulsive when they were partly human. The human-headed snake, or the snake-headed man, and the man with the horns of a wild bull and the legs of a goat were horrible in the extreme. Evil spirits might sometimes achieve success by practicing deception. They might appear as beautiful girls or handsome men and seize unsuspecting victims in deathly embrace, or leave them demented and full of grief, or come as birds and suddenly assume awesome shapes. Fairies and elves and other half-human demons are sometimes regarded as degenerate gods. It will be seen, however, that while certain spirits developed into deities, others remained something between these two classes of supernatural beings. They might attend upon gods and goddesses, or operate independently now against mankind, and now against deities even. The Namtaru, for instance, was a spirit of fate, the son of Bel-Enlil and Ereshkigal, queen of Hades. Apparently, writes Professor Pinches, what a name, he executed the instructions given him concerning the fate of men, and could also have power over certain of the gods. To this middle class belong the evil gods who rebelled against the beneficent deities. According to Hebridean folk belief, the fallen angels are divided into three classes: the fairies, the nimble men, Aurora Borealis, and the blue men of the Minch. In Beowulf, the brood of Cain includes monsters and elves and sea devils, giants also, who long time fought with God, for which he gave them their reward. Similarly, the Babylonian spirit groups are liable to division and subdivision. The various classes may be regarded as relics of the various stages of development, from crude animism to sublime monotheism. In the fragmentary legends, we trace the floating material from which great mythologies have been framed. Oh. Well then. Priestly magicians, wizards, and witches. There were at least two classes of priests who dealt in the occult: the Baru, or seers, and the Asipu, or wizards. The Baru performed divination by consulting the livers of animals, and also by observation of the flight of birds. Okay, here we go. We're into actual magical practices, now that the portal's open and Zul is here. The caste of the Baru was a very ancient one, dating at least from the time of Hammurabi. So this is like a character class in the Sumeria role-playing game. The Baru performed divination by consulting the livers of animals, and also by observation of the flight of birds. We find many of the kings of Babylonia consulting this class of soothsayer. Sennacherib, for example, sought from the Baru the cause of his father's violent death. The Asipu, on the other hand, was the remover of taboo and bans of all sorts. He chanted the rites described in the magical texts and performed the ceremony of atonement. It is, "He that stilleth all to rest, that pacifieth all, by whose incantations everything is at peace. The gods are upon his right hand and his left. They are behind and before him. And don't forget, for $10 super chats or more, you too can have a divination from a wizard on YouTube with a 1-card tarot reading. Ay. Man. The wizard and the witch were known as Kasapu or Kasaptu. These were the sorcerers or magicians proper. And that they were considered dangerous to the community is shown by the manner, and yet they persecute me so. Please, Lord, they know not what they do. And that they were considered dangerous to the community, sounds familiar, is shown by the manner in which they are treated by the Code of Hammurabi, in which it is ordained that he who charges a man with sorcery and can justify the charge shall obtain the sorcerer's house, and the sorcerer shall plunge into the river. Man, but if the sorcerer be not drowned, then he who accused him shall be put to death. Yeah, and okay, now we're talking. And the wrongly accused man shall have his house. Okay, so luckily, I know how to swim. So bring it. If somebody wants to throw me in a river, I will swim away, and then you will be put to death, and I will get your house. Good deal. Okay, clearly pro-wizard people wrote these laws. That is hilarious. I'm liking this more and more. Challenge. A series of texts known as Maklu provides us, among other things, with a striking picture of the Babylonian witch. Here we go. Now we're down to the good stuff. It tells how she prowls the streets, searching for victims, snatching love from handsome men, and withering beauteous women. At another time, she is depicted sitting in the shade of the wall, making spells and fashioning images. The suppliant prays that her magic may revert upon herself, that the image of her which he has made and doubtless rendered into the hands of the priest shall be burnt by the fire god, that her words may be forced back into her mouth. May her mouth be fat, may her tongue be salt, continues the prayer. The haltoppin plant, along with sesame, is sent against her. O witch, like the circlet of this seal, may thy face grow green and yellow. An Assyrian text says of a sorceress that her bounds are the whole world. See, that's interesting because we still depict witches as green and yellow. Like, even, I'm talking about like Halloween decorations, like kids stuff. That's interesting. Here, it's right in Babylon. An Assyrian text says of a sorceress that her bounds are the whole world, that she can pass over all mountains. The writer states that near his door he has posted a servant. On the right and left of his door has he set Lugalgira and Alamu, that they might kill the witch. The library of Assur-Banipal contains many cuneiform tablets dealing with magic, but there are also extant many magical tablets of the later Babylonian Empire. These were known to the Babylonians by some name or word, indicative perhaps of the special sphere of their activities. Thus we have the Maklu, burning, Serpu, consuming, Utuki, Limnuti, evil spirits, and Labartu, witch hag, series, besides many other texts dealing with magical practices. The Maklu series deals with spells against witches and wizards, images of whom are to be consumed by fire to the accompaniment of suitable spells and prayers. That's just mean. That's just rude. The Serpu series contains prayers and incantations against taboo. That against evil spirits provides the haunted with spells which will exorcise demons, ghosts, and the powers of the air generally, and place devils under a ban. In other magical tablets, the diseases to which poor humanity is prone are guarded against, and instructions are given on the manner in which they may be transferred to the dead bodies of animals, usually swine or goats. Damn. Ooh, okay, we got another super chat. Tony Alexovsky. What up? Let's pull a card. Knight of Wands, again. Wait, what was this before? Somebody was saying this is the world's next conspiracy theory, that this person controls the world. Perhaps you are that person, Tony Alexovsky. You could be the secret ruler of everything. Think about it. Spooky stuff. All right. Thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. We picked up a ton more subscribers from that occult movies, top occult movies video that I did. But this is what you get when you're subscribed. You get all this extra stuff. And of course, consider becoming an official supporter of the channel at the join button, where much like all the cool people in the chat, like Exploration Arcanum, who have green names and symbols by their names, you and Neo Kaneda and Alex Soul, you too can be one of the cool kids, the inner circle, and get exclusive content, early premieres of videos. Like, for instance, that Top Occult Movies video, you would have got that a whole day early. And all blog posts, all kinds of other great stuff, along with the knowledge, along with the ability to show off in the chat and show that you are very cool. We're going to have Discord integration soon. And what else? And the knowledge that you are helping support the channel and bring dog treats to Charlie and Rishi. Think about it. Think about it. Or if you're already a supporter, consider supporting more so that we can derange the planet even faster. All right. The word of power. As in Egypt, the word of power was held in great reverence by the magicians of Chaldea, who believed that the name, preferably the secret name of a god, possessed sufficient force in its mere syllables to defeat and scatter the hordes of evil things that surrounded and harassed mankind. The names of Ea and Merodach were perhaps most frequently used to carry destruction into the ranks of the demon army. It was also necessary to know the name of the devil or person against whom his spells were directed. If to this could be added a piece of hair, or the nail parings in the case of a human being, then special efficacy was given to the enchantment. So you can see these beliefs go back all the way to the dawn of humanity. The belief in voodoo effect, basically, or the voodoo doll even. But just as hair or nails were part of a man, so was his name, and hence the great virtue ascribed to names in art magic, ancient and modern. The name was, as it were, the vehicle by means of which the magician established a link between himself and his victim, and the Babylonians, in exorcising sickness or disease of any kind, were wont to recite long catalogues of the names of evil spirits and demons, in the hope that by so doing, they might chance to light upon that especial individual who was the cause of the malady. Even long lists of names of persons who had died premature deaths were often recited in order to ensure that they would not return to torment the living. What's up, 809? Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated for becoming a member and a student of the mysteries. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. O Real to Real O asks, do you get live videos before they go live? You get notified of them right away. But of course, live is live, so, you know. But you get notified right away. And you can, when it is live, you can show off in the feed with your comments. All right. And your cool green name and symbol. All right. And now, Babylonian vampires. Here we go. Thank you again. What's up, 809? All right. In all lands and epochs, the grisly conception of the vampire, this one's for Exploration Arcanum, has gained a strong hold upon the imagination of the common people, and this was no less the case in Babylonia and Assyria than elsewhere. There have not been wanting those who believed that vampirism was confined to the Slavonic race alone, and that the peoples of Russia, Bohemia, and the Balkan Peninsula were the sole possessors of the vampire legend. Recent research, however, has exposed the fallacy of this theory and has shown that, far from being the property of the Slavs, or even of Aryan peoples, this horrible belief is or was the possession of practically every race, savage or civilized, that is known to anthropology. The 7 evil spirits of Assyria are, among other things, vampires of no uncertain type. An ancient poem which was chanted by them commences this. Note the last lines in particular. 7 are they, 7 are they, in the ocean deep. 7 are they, battening in heaven, 7 are they, bred in the depths of the ocean. Not male nor female are they, but are as the roaming wind blast. No wife have they, no son can they beget. Knowing neither mercy nor pity, they hearken not to prayer. To prayer, they are as horses reared amid the hills, the evil ones of Ea. Throne bearers to the gods are they. They stand in the highway to befoul the path. Evil are they, evil are they. 7 are they, 7 are they. Twice 7 are they. Destructive storms and evil winds are they, an evil blast that heraldeth the baneful storm, an evil blast, forerunner of the baleful storm. They are mighty children, mighty sons, heralds of the pestilence, throne-bearers of Ereshkigal. They are the flood which rusheth through the land. 7 gods of the broad earth, 7 robber gods are they, 7 gods of might, 7 evil demons, 7 evil demons of oppression, 7 in heaven and 7 on earth. Spirits that minish heaven and earth, that minish the land, spirits that minish the land, of giant strength and giant tread, demons like raging bulls, great ghosts, ghosts that break through all houses, demons that have no shame, 7 are they. Knowing no care, they grind the land like corn. Knowing no mercy, they rage against mankind. They spill their blood like rain, devouring their flesh and sucking their veins. Where the images of the gods are, there they quake. In the temple of Nabu, who fertilizes the shoots of wheat. They are demons full of violence, ceaselessly devouring blood. Gods, once demons. And then we will wrap up. So get your super chats in now, because this is the end, beautiful friends. Many of the Babylonian gods retained traces of their primitive demoniacal characteristics, and this applies to the Great Triad, Ea, Anu, and Enlil, who probably evolved into godhead from an animistic group of nature spirits. Each of these gods was accompanied by demon groups. Thus the diseased demons were the beloved sons of Bel, the Fates were the 7 daughters of Anu, and the 7 storm demons, the children of Ea. In a magical incantation describing the primitive monster form of Ea, it is said that his head is like a serpent's, the ears are those of a basilisk, his horns are twisted into curls, his body is a sunfish full of stars, his feet are armed with claws, and the sole of his foot has no heel. So for those who don't know, sunfish are gigantic fish that live in the ocean that are all like one head. It's like a giant fish head with small fins and huge eyes. They look bizarre. And here he's saying, he's talking of Ea, the primitive monster form of Ea. It is said that his head is like a serpent's, the ears are those of a basilisk, his horns are twisted into curls, his body is a sunfish full of stars. His feet are armed with claws, and the sole of his foot has no heel. Ea was the great magician of the gods. His sway over the forces of nature was secured by the performance of magical rites, and his services were obtained by human beings who performed requisite ceremonies and repeated appropriate spells. Although he might be worshipped and propitiated in his temple at Eridu, he could also be conjured in mud huts. The latter, indeed, as in Mexico, appear to have been the oldest holy places. The legend of Ura. It is told that Ura, the dread demon of disease, once made up his mind to destroy mankind. But Ishnu, his counselor, appeased him so that he abandoned his intention, and he gave humanity a chance of escape. Whoever should praise Ura and magnify his name would, he said, rule the 4 quarters of the world, and should have none to oppose him. He should not die in pestilence, and his speech should bring him into favor with the great ones of the earth. Wherever a tablet with the song of Ura was set up, in that house there should be immunity from the pestilence. Okay, that will be it for today. Buy this book, Babylon and Sumer Myths and Tales. Check it out. Buy it on Amazon or from Walmart. I will put a link in the products section of this video. And that will be it. I need to check on these dogs. They're going crazy. So that's going to be it for me. Make sure to like and subscribe. Consider joining. Definitely thank you to everyone who's joined. Make sure to join the channel, become a supporter, and of course, check out magick.me, www.magick.me, magick.me, my school for my online school for magic, meditation, and mysticism, where you can learn how to summon the Sumerian gods back from the abyss. And also all kinds of other stuff like getting your finances in order and discovering your true will, your reason for incarnating, and using magic, real ceremonial magic. I was to discover it. I was just on one-to-one VIP student calls just right before getting on this, where people are talking about getting real magical results, and they're like, this stuff is real. It's like, yeah, this stuff is real. It actually works. It works almost scientifically. It's kind of insane, or certainly empirically. But yeah, at magick.me you can learn all of that, and also yoga, because magic, ceremonial magic, and yoga put together are a hell of a combo. With yoga, you master your body and your mind, and with magic, you use that honed force to identify your goal. Your goal meaning what you will do with your life, what you were meant to do with your life, the one overwhelming purpose for your existence, and to go for it with everything that you have in ways that can be so profound. I mean, when you think about things like the level of focus, concentration, and willpower that things like yoga give you, in ways that can be so profound that it can seem to the normies like you're literally doing magic. Or in the words of the great chaos magician Austin Osman Spare, that you are living like a tree walking. A lovely Zen koan and statement. All right. Lots of love, everyone. Check it out, www.magick.me, magick.me, and have a lovely